My name is Whitney. I am the assistant director here at the library. If you've never met me, hello. So this is one of our partnerships with the Historical Society. We're so happy to continue this. I'm very excited to hear about Andrew Todesco's program on the Town Hall fire of December 20th, 1970. For me personally, I'm not from Mansfield, so I really like to hear about the history and to get to know the stories behind them. And I do want to mention before I hand it over to Andy that Tuesday we have a really nice holiday music program here at the library. It's going to be at 6:30 in this room, and it is sponsored by the Friends of the Library. So we'll hear a brass band, and we'll have some nice refreshments. And I hope to see some of you or all of you there. So thank you, and I'll hand it over.
All right. Thank you, Whitney. I appreciate it. Like Whitney said, I'm Andy Todesco from the Historical Society, and we try a couple times a year to give a presentation. Last night I was very congested and hoarse, so I think I'll be all right. But if I start up in a coughing fit, I'm going to pull Kevin out of the bullpen, whether he wants to. No, I'm just kidding. I think I'll be fine today. But anyway, who remembers the old town hall by chance? I don't. Just slightly before my time. How do you do? Good. I remember the night of the fire. Also excellent. Well, first of all, you might be wondering, like, why this presentation now? Any particular reason? I was looking forward to doing this in 2020 because 2020 would have been the 50th anniversary. December of 2020 would have been the 50th anniversary of the town hall fire, but unfortunately, because of COVID, we couldn't have public meetings. And then last year we did something else. And well, anyway, here we are now, 53rd anniversary. That's why we're doing it today. Not that you really need a special anniversary date, but that would have been cool then. But here we are today. And also, if you have any memories, any questions, feel free to corrections for that matter, because I wasn't there, so I'd be more than happy to hear your any thoughts or recollections you might have. Didn't like spending. Yeah, good. It's not school, so if you have something to add in, just put your hand up or belt it out. More than happy to hear from you. All right. So before we get started, I was had to decide, like, should I go back a little bit further or not? And I figured that I would, just to make sense. So I'm going to mention a couple of buildings that were predecessors to what we call the Old Town Hall. You probably know this, but in, I think it was 1711, Norton, which is now Norton, Easton, and Mansfield, broke away from Taunton because it was too far to go for religious services, among other things. Then the people in Easton decided they didn't want to come to Norton for services, so they broke away in 1725. And then Mansfield tried to break away, but Norton had had enough of breaking away. They held on to us as closely as they could. We still became a precinct in 1731, which allowed us to put up a very crude initial meeting house. They called it a meeting house, not a town hall, but a meeting house was put. It didn't even have windows. It had like paper over the windows or something. It was very, very crude that they put up on the South Common. But it's important to realize that back then you needed a parish. There was one parish, and the parish constituted a town government. Now that we're a precinct, even though we were in a town, we were able to have religious services. They didn't have to go down to Norton, which was kind of a trek back then, for every Sunday for services and things like that. At least they could come to the center of Mansfield. That first meeting house stood on the South Common. South Common, right? Yeah, on the South Common. This one also stood on the South. This is not the Old Town Hall. This is its direct predecessor. It's the second meeting house, probably one of the most historic buildings in town. It was completed, as you see up here, in 1768. And remember, we became a town in 1775. So now we were this close. All we needed was approval from the state to become a full town status, which of course happened in 1775. So not next year, but 2025 will be the 250th anniversary of the town. So we have that to look forward to. But anyway, this was very historic, certainly a lot of, and it sat right on the South Common. If you look, you can see what was the Lovell block, or you might have known it as George's Cleaners. It came down in around 2006. It was quite dilapidated at that point, but that's directly on the South Common. Now there's that building, that Canish type building, opposite it, in case you don't know where you are. And if I'm not explaining where things are, just let me know. All right. Little side note. This is not to really deeply confuse you, but that original meeting house had a bell. The bell was financed in 1827 by this guy, Asa Clapp. okay? He was a Mansfield native who had moved up to Portland, Maine, became a very wealthy merchant. They wrote to him asking him to supply a bell for the old meeting house, which he did. It's inscribed. It was built at the Paul Revere Foundry, which is pretty prestigious. And we were able to, Kevin was able to do a lot of the work, was able to save it in 2015, and now it's in the public safety building, thanks. And it's been refurbished, it's in great shape. So this is a separate bell from the one that was in the old town hall. Just didn't want you to be confused. This isn't really the bell. This is another story for another time. All right, anyway, so let's take it back to here. The town becomes a town in 1775, so that's exciting. The meeting house was basically the first town hall, even though they wouldn't have called it that. They called it the meeting house. So the parish had a hard time maintaining the building, though, well, we see at the top. In 1838, the Orthodox Congregational Church, over theological differences, whatever they were, split away from the original parish, and now there's a divide in town. And people began to question, why are we still, isn't this sort of an advantage or something for the first parish church? Here it is on what would become self-common. This is where the selectmen would meet. This is where various events and stuff would happen in town. And they thought, well, maybe it's time to sort of break this out. So there was a long drawn-out dispute in the 1870s. It was moved in 1873. It was moved to Union Street at the end of that. The old town cemetery, right? It was moved at the. The meeting house was moved to the end, and then that lot, which is now the war monument, became empty. This is animation by Mark Plamage, who actually is with us right here today. Hi, Mark. Waving hello to you back there. And he did a calendar back in 2020, right, Mark? It was a while ago now. And he put this animation. That's the current day town hall. That's South Common, rather, where the meeting house sat, kind of right in the middle of it. So the flagpole would be like right behind it. This would be like kind of where Dr. Lynch is, I think, right? The level block would have been here. So he's standing on Union Street, or whoever took this picture is standing on Union Street. All right, so it sat right on the South Common, then they moved it to Union Street. So after it moved, the South Common was created. This map's from 1879. The meeting house is over here, and this is an empty lot, right? This is now where that war monument is, but in case you don't know, think of that tiny little lot. That's where this great big town hall was built. That's where it sat. It was a pretty big building, too. All right, so anyway, First Parish closes its doors. As an interesting side note, the meeting house comes down in 1888, and legend has it that that first house at the end of the cemetery, okay, so it's gone. That first house at the end of the old cemetery on Union Street on the right, I took a picture of it the other day. It's kind of a tannish house. Looks nice. Somebody's fixed it up nice. Was made from lumber, used it from the original meeting house. So anyway, all right. So now the meeting house is, now we're talking like the 1880s. Right? There's a lot of need in town for different things, right? There was a call for a new town hall, and this is what we're looking at here. Just so you know where we are, okay? This is Union Street, and then West Street would be behind it somewhere, back here somewhere. So the meeting house was no longer suitable for conducting town business. Mansfield High School was formed in 1878. They had no place to meet. They would meet, I think, at the meeting house or wherever they could find an open space. Like they needed one room, basically, at that time. A lot of people wanted a public library. That was considered a great advancement at the time. Mansfield had no place to put it. And it was also growing rapidly. Farming was starting to die off. Industrialization was coming in. There was factories, et cetera, et cetera. So the town was growing, and the meeting house was not really serving the needs anymore. It's kind of a big old thing that was finally torn down and replaced in 1883 by what we now call the Old Town Hall. Right? So the annual meeting back in March of 82, right, 1882, voters heard a report by a committee appointed to see about a location and plans for building a town hall and for a high school. Right? It's kind of interesting that the high school took up one room in that building for a brief time. This is Reverend Ide from the Congregational Church, who was greatly interested. He was interested in all civic affairs anyway, a real proponent of the first library, in fact, of Mansfield establishing a library, I should say. And his picture still hangs, last I knew anyway, over in the corner in the library right here. So anyway, he read a letter at that meeting from a William O. Grover, who was a Mansfield native living in Boston. Just like the meeting house had a bell donated, Grover, not specifically for a bell, but $5,000 towards the construction of a town hall. There's a lot of money in 1882. Yeah, absolutely. I tried to look it up on the inflation calculator, and it only goes back to 1900, so I couldn't really say, but it's, you know, probably $100,000, I don't know, it was quite a bit anyway, maybe more. And the meeting voted another $10,000 towards the project. So, anyway, so just so you know, I think we probably have it down by now, but that building stood where you're familiar with the Keach Monument, which went up in 1978 after the Town Hall fire. It's a war monument for those who served from, if you were from Mansfield. But again, this just to show you, this is an 1895 map, which I put the date on it earlier. For some reason, I lost it. Anyway, this map is from 1895. Here's the town hall, okay? And then this would be like where the police station, town hall, later town hall was from 1974, kind of more, actually more over here, because this is the cemetery. That's the Congregational Church, directly across the street, the South Common, Union Street, West Street. So anyway, right on that tiny little lot was where it was the site that they chose for this new town hall. Okay. So this is really cool. Actually, Kevin, can you kill off one more light? Mark, you know, it's nice to know. That's the lights, all right. It's nice to know an artist. Mark Klamich is Mark. What was the name of the program again?
SketchUp.
SketchUp. This is neat because this is using common things that we would still know today. This is the South Common. So over here, okay, this would be the Old Town Cemetery. This is 50, way back here. You'll see it later on. Is 50 West Street. Okay, where that town hall was built in 1974 that later became the police station that they're trying to figure out what to do with. Here's the building that's on the South Common that replaced Lovell. Here's the Congregational Church. So Mark was able to make this animation so we can see what the town hall would look like if it was still here today. Ready to see something neat? Here we go.
Oh, that's cool. Wow.
Yeah. See the church, there's the church. There's the cemetery on the left. That house obviously is still there. There's that 50 West Street building. Which is, we're gonna pick, oh, there's Memorial Hall off to the right. Peek through the trees. Yeah, it really gives you an appreciation for just where it was. There you go. All right, Mark. Good job. All right, good. So anyway, it's really cool, and I was glad that we were able to include it. So they built them. We'll kind of buzz through this a little bit here, right? Boston architect named John Lyman Faxon was the designer. Colonial style, made of wood upon a brick foundation. People named Chesley of Boston were the building contractors. This is probably, I have a couple of favorite pictures of it, but this one's probably my favorite. This is the front, it would have faced Union Street. Here's the cemetery in the background. This is great. If you look close, they're playing baseball or stickball. This guy's got the bat in his hands. The ladies are safe, although these ladies are in foul territory. They gotta keep their heads up here. Right? And I assume this guy's pitching. It's pretty neat. It's a very clear picture too, if you actually look at if you look at it up close, like on an iPad or something like that. But anyway, there it is. You can see pretty close to the street, pretty close to the cemetery. The outside was a Venetian red with bronze green trim. So this is one, I think Lou Andrews colorized this one, not Mark. But a rough idea of what the original painting color might have looked like. Down the road, this is a sawmill that's now long gone, obviously. This is where the 50 West Street is today. All right, you still with me? Okay, good. This was some of the key features. What were they? There was a cupola up top, right, with this beautiful four-sided clock. That's something to kind of keep in mind. Again, this was, not again, but we have philanthropists and wealthy people with Mansfield connections coming back to help us out. Four-sided clock graced the cupola, as you see. Thomas H. Wood of New York, whose wife, Elizabeth Day Wood, was a native of East Mansfield. So, yeah, we're lucky to have some good benefactors along the way, I guess. But bear in mind that that clock was there, and there's also a bell up there in the tower as well, which we still have today. So, some other key features. The first floor had a room for the selectmen. This is when it originally opened anyway. A room for the school committee, a room for the public library, and a room for Mansfield High School, among other things. So that was the original plan. This is another one of my favorite pictures. Someone asked earlier when this was taken. I don't know the exact date, but the absence of power lines tells us that it was before 1903. So it was between 1883 and 1903. So probably the 1890s, let's say.
So the library was actually located in the town hall, there was nowhere else, that was the.
Yeah, that was one, and from my understanding, it was one room, basically, probably had 500 books, but at that, who knows how many exactly, but, you know, for a town of a few thousand people, that was considered a big deal. It was kind of made sense, I guess they probably figured the kids could go over and use the library and stuff. But neither of that lasted very long, because the town was growing fast, certainly. Up on the second floor, there's another one of my favorite pictures, right? There was a hall that measured 60 feet by 50 feet. Not sure exactly what this event was. At first I thought it was Christmas trees, then I realized I think those are budding trees, actually. But what else do you notice about the floor? Basketball floor, yeah. They would play basketball there, and supposedly no one shot better, like line drive basketball shots than people from Mansfield. Between that, you had to contend with the rafters, and then there was also the Park Row School at one time was the high school, which had an even lower ceiling on the gym underneath, I guess. So anyway, but there was a big hall up there. It was used for everything from elections, town elections, proms, dances, you name it. It seemed like it happened there. All right, so there was a grand gala opening on Tuesday. It was interesting. It was a Tuesday, May 1st, 1883. All right, as you can see, this is what the front of the program looked like. This was the back. We have one down at the Copeland House, if you ever want to see it in person. Dedicatory exercises at 2 o'clock. Among the speakers were former Governor John Long, and this is a different Grover, not the one we mentioned earlier. I'm not sure who he was. And Reverend Ide spoke. Cobb's Band and the Choral Society provided music. And then there was a ball, look at this, promenade concert from 8 to 9, and then dancing from 9 till 2 in the morning. So I guess nobody worked on Wednesday, May 2nd in Mansfield. I don't know. It's a long time, long thing.
Oh, they didn't go to the ball.
Oh, they didn't go to the ball, right. The caterer was Harvey Blunt of Boston, and the tickets were, can't see it from back there. Yeah, it was the ticket was $1.50, right, and then 75 cents for supper. If you wanted supper, it was 75 cents. So that was not an inexpensive night out either. So anyway, considering it was 1883. All right, at the dedication is a quote from Reverend Ide. The march of public improvement has actually begun with no hesitating step, but with the double quick of an inspiring progress. So this kind of captures that sentiment. This was considered very progressive. A gala followed with dinner, dancing well into the night. As the years went by, Mansfield High School needed more space. It ended up on Villa Street at that school, which is now gone, and it bounced around a little bit. On the South Common from 1911, what's now the town hall, was the high school. You realize that. It was originally the high school from 1911 to 1954. And so that made some room, and a little annex was put on for the police department. This actually is the first police department, 1909. Sometimes people will ask if there was no police department, what did they do beforehand? They had designated constables and the sheriff's office to police. But this was the first police department, and they sat down for a photo in 1909. And then either at that time or very soon thereafter, they went into the town hall.
This picture and a few others are at the Mansfield Deli on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They came from the society.
Yeah, most of them came. They came to us through probably from someone, and then eventually they've been disseminated, social media and stuff. And sometimes people have asked. People love the historical pictures, so generally speaking, we're okay with sharing them because they belong to everybody in a sense. Anyway. Town Hall, like I said, was the heart of town affairs for almost 9 decades, for 87 years. Local elections, town meetings have happened, school dances, basketball games. This is an election at the town hall on the left. That's Edward Winton, some people might remember him, and Selectman Lewis Davison voting. Or on the right, Walter Johnson, Edward Epstein. Those would be both from probably the 1950s. So anyway.
Andy?
Yes.
I remember that in the old town hall, that the police station was sort of in the basement. Am I remembering that?
Yeah, it was kind of, as I understand, and some of you might know better than me, it was sort of like closer to the back to 50 West Street, and I think they did have basement.
And they also had a ramp,
access
which I think
to.
there was a ramp that went down there, so it might feel like it went down too.
So it wasn't really the basement, it was the first floor.
I don't know.
The shows were in the
I feel like it
basement
was,
of the
it
police
was in
station
a level
on
from
the
the
first
back
floor.
door, but you could from the town hall go down the ramp. Anybody been in the Giselles to know how it was ramp?
What's that? I'm sorry?
What did you just say? I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, he-
Well, the cells were in the basement, and the police station
Cells,
was
yeah.
on the first floor.
Okay.
It was in the back with the parking lot. That you don't see on here because they didn't have asphalt parking lot or that addition on the back of it yet. Yeah.
So that must mean you were in a cell.
I was just gonna say,
There were only 4 or 5 cells there.
I do remember
My,
something being in the basement.
Yeah, as an offshoot, a friend of mine used to work for the Walpole Police Department, and I don't remember how recent, it was relatively recent. He showed I guess it was their town hall, it was also their police station. He showed me the cell that was built, it was like a built-in thing, it was barely even 6 feet tall. I think they told relatively recent times they kept people in it. I'm not sure how recent, I'll have to ask him, but anyway. So I'm sure whatever we had in the cellar wasn't exactly luxury accommodations, that's for sure. Luckily, nobody was down there that night either. So no rescue was needed, thankfully. Here's a couple of pictures. They're just photos of the actual Mansfield news, but it kind of gives you an idea. Up and in. Flashy Hornet is on the left. Flashy Hornet forward Kurt Griffin sinks one of 14 baskets he tallied Friday night as his mates, to lead his mates in a convincing 65-51 victory over Oliver Ames. And over here, this is it says Ben Merrill. They beat Stoughton that night. So anyway, it's kind of funny to see them trying to shoot around the rafters. But anyway, there they go. Not sure exactly how far down they came, but they looked like they were maybe 3 or 4 feet higher than the basket, I'm guessing. Does anyone remember? Looks like it's about it. I mean, probably they're trying to play basketball right here with these rafters, I would guess. These are fairly low. So anyway, so let's get to the fire anyway. Town Hall meets a tragic end on December 20th, 1970. Like we said, the police department had a tiny headquarters sort of in the back of the building. Remember, the front is really, the real front was Union Street, so maybe closer to where 50 West Street is. And then in 1970, fateful decision, the police headquarters was being renovated, so they had to vacate. They went to who remembers where they went, by the way? Where were they for a few years? They were in the high school, Mansfield High, which had recently opened. The current one had just opened then.
They went into the Park Grove School?
No, the high school. What's now the high school? They had a
What
room.
is now the high school?
I guess they had room. I don't know. This when it opened. So this is Andy. If you know Andy Barr, he's been kind of scanning a lot of We inherited a ton of negatives from the Mansfield News, and they're awesome. We're very thankful they gave them to us. Anyway, he's been scanning a ton of them, and this is actual work that was being done in the police. I couldn't believe when I saw him a few months ago. I'm like, oh, we're going to pull those down for the. I had no idea that we had them. So this is work that was being done in the police area. In fact, is it this one? There's one where you guys see the sign that says police. I guess it's not in this picture. They had a Coke machine, I can tell you that much. So here's some more. Just a quick fast forward. The State Fire Marshal's Office determined the Town Hall fire started in the police annex. So that's why it was important to know that the police were in there, even though they had nothing to do with it, obviously. Probably as the result of faulty wiring. So this could actually be a photo of, you can see the box here. I mean, maybe this is a photo where it actually began. We don't know for sure, but something was wrong in there, and that's unfortunately what started the fire. So that's a quick fast forward. There are a couple other things to mention. All right, so that actual night, it was December 20th, 1970. It was a Sunday night heading into Monday morning. It was a regular night. You see the temperature was about 25 degrees. Luckily, there was no wind that night. It was a very still night. Officer Richard Wade, who we actually were in contact with, he's not in the area at the moment, but he said, yeah, sure, use my picture, absolutely, which was great. And so he was out he must have been very young, he was in his very early 20s. He was out kind of doing his routine patrol around the town, and he notices that there's this bright orange glow coming out of the town hall. Now, that's not good, because he knew nobody was there. And he's like, this is not good at all. So this is him on the left. At least we hope it is. We believe it is. We think we took the right picture off of Facebook. That's him. Oh, good. Good. I believe that's his Marines picture, based on his Facebook page. I really like this quote. He picked up on the radio. He got Earl Weeman on the other end, who was also, Mr. Weeman passed away in 2016. But it said, he said, we're going to lose it. Wade told Earl Weeman, the town hall is on fire. Send all you've got. And we did lose it, that's for sure. You could tell right away it was bad. And they did send all they had more. It was certainly way too late to save the building. So sure enough, just passing by was Louis Cipriani. I don't know if everybody remembers him. He was a part-time officer, then a reserve officer, and I think a dispatcher later on too. But he happens to be driving by. He jumps out of his car, and him and Wade start directing traffic away. I mean, they were on before the fire. They called the fire department immediately, and that's how quickly he happened to have just been going by. Right? Obviously, the fire department came very, very quickly. Heaviest flames are at the rear of the town hall, where the police headquarters work was being performed. So this is from the newspaper. Wade told this story. While we stood in the back of the hall waiting for the apparatus, heavy smoke was pouring out of the roof near the chimney. I could see a red glow on the first floor. All of a sudden, the glass door in the rear of the hall blew out. Okay, so he basically saw the door explode after, that's the fire had progressed to that point. So then, the fire department arrived, right? This is Cy Bellavance, if you remember him. He used to be the fire chief. Saw flames, as it was described in the paper, belching out the back roof. Immediately called for help, according to the Mansfield News. 7 nearby, of course Mansfield was there, and 7 other nearby communities for the biggest assembly of fire apparatus Mansfield has seen in years. All right. Couple of things before now. Luckily, the town hall was well documented, and the fire was well documented. We're pretty lucky. There was a Thomas Croak. He's one of these guys that would show up at fires. He's like the official photographer of the Foxborough Fire Department. He took some really nice photos, some dramatic photos that I'll show you in a minute. Ralph Merrifield, luckily, was on his computer, as he usually is, might I add. And he discovered from the state archives a brief film of the fire. WHDH was somehow got there and managed to take a quick movie of it. It's not long, but it's pretty cool. Several people, because the wreckage, by the way, the wreckage stood till May. It didn't tear down till May. It was December to May. May, December, the other way, I guess. Anyway, a number of photos were taken. We have a bunch from Cliff Phillips, if you know Cliff. Took photos of the wreckage. Mansfield News gave a detailed description, some of which you've already seen. So let's take a look. This is the first one. This would be the West Street. I think these first 5 were all taken by Croak from Foxborough. So this is the West Street side. You can see already the roof is just basically gone or about to be gone. This is from the Union Street side. All kinds of aerials were on site they were running lines from as far away as like Pot Street. Interestingly, I mentioned it later on, but Plainville showed up and they put a pump right in the Rumford River. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Which I guess you can still do today in a case such as this. Because the river really wasn't very far away. They did everything they could to just get it out as quickly as they could. This one's particularly dramatic. This is the back, I'm pretty sure. So this would have been like really the heart of the fire. And you can see look with the downspouts holding on for dear life there, and so was the entire wall. It was about to come down, and you can see the fire's nowhere near out, so that was just about to collapse. I believe they even had rigs either in the cemetery or very, very close to it. They had to have, because this is the back. And the paper said that, I believe it actually said in the cemetery, if anybody remembers that or not. But anyway, this one's dramatic too, because don't forget, look how close these buildings were, right? Between between the glow of the fire and the responding services and everything else. You can see how the congregational church is clearly visible, but it's a pretty dramatic picture as well. This is the hall upstairs where they would play basketball. You can see just totally engulfed. This one's, I think, the most interesting. This is the whole picture. I don't know if these were Foxborough guys or not, because this one was stamped with Thomas Croak's name on it. But it's a dramatic enough picture anyway, with all the guys holding the hose and everything. It's a little hard to see, but can you see the water just cascading down the steps? It just looks like Niagara Falls or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really a kind of a dramatic picture. So it projects pretty well. It looks even better on an iPad or a phone, something like that. Now, this is again, this is about 40 seconds long. This is the video that Ralph found. Basically, it's of the fire. There's a couple of quick shots. They show a guy like sitting on the ground. I think they show the Plainville aerial for like a quarter of a second. You have to look real fast, but I can show it to you twice if you want to see it again. All right, you ready? Off we go. That's Plainville Fire Department, that's it. Yeah, the whole hall is just on fire upstairs.
Oh, yeah, no saving that.
No.
Those old wooden buildings, they went quick.
There was I don't know if it made much of a difference there. I mean, they may have plugged it up by then, but the original clock had weights that went from the cupola to the cellar, and it somehow, kept time that way. It was like a box of rocks tied in, and it would fall. Gravity would pull it down at a certain rate, and I don't know if that. I think they might have covered up that shaft by then, but there was certainly no. I mean, there was no fire stops. That wouldn't anything like that. Those old buildings, like you said, they would just go up like, go up like nothing. So anyway, one last look here, because it is pretty neat.
Crazy, the weights went right to the cellar, huh?
Yeah, that's the way it was described.
Wow.
Plainville.
How cold was it?
So it was 25 degrees.
So everything was freezing.
Yeah, the water must have been freezing along the way, although it was still. That was the blessing of the weather. And those guys, there's one name you can make out. It says J. Dill on the guy. I don't know if I may know a J. Dill, where he might have been a fireman from, like pickle, like that Dill, D-I-L-L.
I don't know, there was a John Dillon Norton, but
Oh, that's probably, it said J. Dill on the back of it, so he was probably some Norton guys you saw in there too. All right, so, speaking of which, crews from Foxborough, Attleboro, Norton, Easton, North Attleboro, Plainville, and Walpole all came to give mutual aid. Like I just said, Plainville had a 100-foot aerial. They were pulling water right out of the Rumford River. Others would, down Union Street, down as far away as the beginning of Park Street, which is a good long way away, as whatever they could. High above the blaze was James McLaughlin in the Mansfield aerial, as you see this quote from the Mansfield News, at times engulfed in dense smoke, guiding a light into the rear of the structure where the fire started. So if you remember Jim McLaughlin, there's a picture of it. It's always nice to have a picture of someone who we can connect with from the past. Hundreds of spectators looked on, as you see, from a safe distance. But luckily the wind was calm, because think how close some of these historic structures are, right? And the Lovell building on the right is gone, but Memorial Hall is still there. It was pretty close. Congregational Church, several homes, even that of the Masonic block, it was called, where Dr. Lynch is, or Mansfield Bay State Eye Center, whatever it's called, Bay State, yeah. Even that was fairly close, but luckily there was no embers blowing around, so that was certainly fortunate. Sense of loss was immediate. This story I think was really kind of nice. I feel like, I think there's still a strong sense of community amongst people, but things like this I don't think really would happen anymore. From the DeMonte's store and the Zeckers from the old country store out in East Mansfield, they showed up, opened up the church of the Congregational Church. What's the chicken because of eggs, I guess. Opened up the Congregational Church, right? Cooked over 12 dozen eggs and bacon for the weary firefighters, hot coffee. The next month, Thomas Skinner, who was the fire chief in Plainville, came over, and he said there was nothing more welcome than that church across the street where firemen could go and have a cup of coffee and let the body thaw out. So I'm sure they appreciated it. But that was kind of nice. Flames were largely subdued by 3 a.m. Most of your out-of-town rigs left by 5:30 or so. Mansfield stayed on the scene, putting out the occasional flare-ups. But they did, over the course of the night, manage to get that nasty fire out. All right. Belfry and the clock came crashing down into the ruins. That's something worth remembering. And then to make matters worse, at some point, that beautiful old structure, they covered it with aluminum siding, and they're pretty sure that made it that much harder to fight and made the fire that much more intense. So that was unfortunate. Who knew? But that's the way things worked out. We have quite a number of pictures of the wreckage, which I'll show you in succession here. Oddity, though, in the town manager's office was discovered. As you see up here, there was a bookshelf that stayed standing. No fire damage, no water damage, but you could stand next to it, look up and see the sky. very strange. It's just the, I guess that's how fires work. You just never know what's gonna get damaged and what isn't. So more photos of the wreckage. I think most of these were taken by Cliff Phillips. So I'll just kind of scroll through them, maybe 10 seconds apiece. This is and if you have any, want me to hold up on one, just let me know. This is West Street, okay? So the cemetery would be behind the building in this picture. What do you spot in this picture you don't see anymore? The phone booth, yeah. We'd like to have that. Right? And I think that was outside. There's a picture somewhere of Edwin and a little kid. He's handing a little kid looks like he's giving him a ticket, but it's handing him some kind of whatever. And you can see that phone booth in that picture, so it must have been there a while. And with some snow. I don't know if there was snow on the ground that night. I don't recall them saying that. But like I said, the wreckage was up for months. So I mean, this could have been later in the winter. I'm not quite sure. This is it from the cemetery, obviously, so you could still go and stand at that angle today and contemplate what it might have looked like. But you can see just the roof gone, roof completely, even worse. I mean, it's bad everywhere, but it's even worse over here. This is the area in which it started. More wreckage. I think that's the back, but I can't really tell.
Did they ever save that sign that says Mansfield Town Hall?
Not that I know of. Do you know that, guys? No, I don't believe they did. They didn't save a lot, actually. I'm going to get to that in a second. Some writing that led through the back of the picture, but maybe the picture was on top of, perhaps, but still a pretty good picture. I imagine that's the second floor rafters. That's what it looks like to me. Yeah. So they managed to get up to the second floor to take that picture. It is amazing that it was still standing. Yeah.
Right.
Cemetery again. These are gravestones. This is the end of the building. This is the congregational church here. Kind of make it out a little bit. That's the police end of the building. So that'd be facing 50 West Street, where the fire started. Same thing, just from the cemetery again.
See, that's a wonder it didn't burn right to the ground.
I know, they needed eight fire departments, I guess, big time. I'm still amazed it stood as long as it did, but then again, I guess, you don't take it down the next day, I suppose. Yeah, they're all kind of similar. It's the phone booth again. Always worth noting. Phone booth again. So this is West Street. This is the curve to Rumford Avenue, if that makes sense to you.
Right.
So like I said earlier, State Fire Marshal's Office determined that the fire began with a probable electrical malfunction in the wiring in the police headquarters. So what happened next? Insurance was expected to cover about $265,000 in the structural damage and about $50,000 in contents. But now, it's not that much consolation. You have to start again. You lost a beautiful old building that you probably figured was going to be around forever. Nobody was expecting it. So now comes the aftermath. The aftermath is a pretty interesting story too. So right away, the town manager was Rolf Camp at that time. Immediately made plans for a temporary office in the Wheeler building, which is 129 North Main Street, which is now Advantage Appliance. If you know that,
Right.
that brick building next to Jimmy's Pub. It was then owned by pharmacist Christy Vose. I think he moved the drugstore over to Copeland Drive by that time because it was vacant. I'm not sure, it might have been just the right side of the building. I think Advantage has both sides of the first floor now. But I think it might have just been the right side, if I remember correctly. If I remember what I've heard correctly, I don't remember it. But when I say they acted fast,
They had the second floor too.
they did have the second floor, yeah, which we're gonna see down at the bottom. I said they acted fast, right? That fire was December 20th. This was in the Christmas Eve edition of the Mansfield News, this notification. So they made this announcement within days. It says relocation of all town offices. The office of the treasurer and collector is temporarily located in the Manufacturers National Bank headquarters on North Main Street. So that was different, but anyway. Relocated in the second floor of the Vose building. It says town manager, camp's office, planning board office, selectman's office. To be located on the first floor of the Vose building, or what we now call the Wheeler building, on Monday. treasurer collector, town clerk, electric department office, sewer and water department office, board of assessors, veterans office. So,
There might not have been much to move.
yeah, it really wasn't. Well, we'll get to that too. So at one of the anniversary, about 10 years later, they went back and interviewed some folks who were involved. Peter Saunders was, who you see on the left here, was on the board of selectmen at the time. And he recalled that Christy Vose, again, who owned the building at the time, called him the person who accommodated us the most. Stepped up and said, hey, why don't you, you can rent this, it's open, why don't you rent it? And he also, Saunders also recalled that Ralph Camp worked around the clock to get offices established in the Wheeler building. So, nice to remember people who had a lot on their plate and acted quickly at that time. Andy Barr also found these negatives and scanned them. This is neat. This is the, I guess the clerk, all those offices I was just mentioned, kind of lining up in the first floor of the Wheeler building. And what's neat about this picture, actually both these pictures, you can see the old post office, which is now the Elks Hall, through the window, which you still have that view today. So it's easy enough to know where they were. That's pretty cool. So there's a long-standing myth. Whenever I think, you often hear people say, all those records were lost in the fire, everything burned up in the fire. And a lot of firemen kind of bristle when they heard that. They're like, it really wasn't entirely the case. As I said, from accounts right from that time, nearly all the town clerk's historic records were in a fireproof vault, so they were safe, luckily, the vital information. Records of the light department were found in a fireproof box, so that's good. Yeah. Many others, of course, were soaked by water, but they were salvaged. Some records were lost upstairs, but luckily what had been moved upstairs had been microfilmed already. So if they really needed to go back and find something older, they could. I guess the microfilm must have been elsewhere, because apparently it was safe. This is, if you remember Gladys Cross, she was the veterans agent for 20 years. She said, when we got into the building, in other words, after the fire, we found the water up to the second drawer of our filing cabinets. I remember we had to take every single piece of paper and lay it down somewhere separately so they wouldn't all stick together permanently. So that must have been a pretty tedious task for sure. And there must have been a lot of, I don't think I really need this, because you only have so much room to lay stuff out. So you probably have to prioritize what was really important and what wasn't. The police records were safe also. They were over at the electric department, just in the storage garage, being stored in the garage. So their records were safe as well, which I assume must have been arrest records and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Court records, things like that. So, history lost, right? Now this is not the greatest picture. There's a lot of damage that I'm sure a Photoshopper could fix for us. But anyway, I wanted to put this one up. This is obviously before the fire. These are this is the entrance on Union Street sometime in probably the late 60s. Right after the fire, apparently there was a black slate dedication tablet from 1883 on the first floor. Never found out what happened to it. Maybe it broke. Maybe something fell on it and they just chucked it. I would imagine that's probably what happened. Anybody ever hear any legend about what happened to the black slate dedication plate? You know, they had like built 1883, all that stuff on it. So that's gone. There were two painted seals on either side of the, at that time. This is a town seal. This is the state seal. It appears that nobody saved those either. Right? But kind of keep this picture in the back. That was a guy working right here at the time. You can see him in that damage. But anyway, at least I assume he's working. But just bear that in mind, because we're going to come back to that in a minute. In May of '71, like we said, the wreckage was torn down or removed. After that, it was decided this was too small for a modern town hall. It doesn't make sense to put it back on this exact location. Committee was formed, by the way, and the initial proposal was to take the end of Union Street, okay, close it off, and then build like a little bit on that, no, not even on that site. I think they were going to use the old town hall site for parking and build this long one-story thing up against the, sort of against the, on the South Common. They were taking like half the South Common, and kind of it would have been backed up to the cemetery. But the people, there was a big hue and cry. They were like, we don't want that. There's got to be something else. So luckily they didn't do that, and the geography stayed like it is. In 1978, that Peach Monument, which we all probably know, there on West Street, right? was dedicated as, that's what the site of the town hall, was dedicated, that memorial for the, for war veterans. Police department remained at the high school at their temporary quarters until 1974. That all departments would remain in their temporary locations up at the Wheeler Building, wherever they happen to have been, until the new town hall police station opened in 1974 at 50 West Street, which is, we probably all remember that, at least as the police station up until, what, 4 years ago maybe. So anyway, it was town hall in the front, police station in the back originally. Then, of course, just so we didn't know what happened afterwards, in 1997, 50 West Street became just a police station, and the town hall opened at this is really a venerable building now. It was Mansfield High School, like I said, from 1911 to 1954. Then up till the early 90s, it was Park Row Elementary School. It was shuttered for about 3 or 4 years, then they renovated it, and now it's the town hall. Much less likely to burn, I would say, based on what it's made out of. And sadly, I think the old town hall is, fading into memory. It's still, plenty of people around that still remember it, but certainly, not as many as there once was, certainly. But you can still find traces of it around town. Not many, but a few. The bell that was in the belfry, a lot of people don't even know what this is in front of the town hall. It was stationed, it was from the old town hall, the 1883 town hall. It crashed down in the fire. It was put in front of 50 West Street, and then when the town hall moved in 1997, it was moved to in front of the town hall. Ralph.
My father-in-law Henry Briggs said he and another fellow member of the highway department went into the fire and pulled that out at the end.
Really?
It was put in storage for a while, apparently.
Good. Well, thank God they did. I think the I remember the article, I don't remember offhand, but it was.
Yeah, the JC built the original frame to hold it
Right.
In the 70s.
Yeah, and it wasn't even, I don't think it was even there, I think it was like 2 years after the town hall. I'm just going on memory, I might be wrong, but I think it was a year or two afterwards too, which is not a long time, but.
It was at the interim town hall for a while, I believe, and then moved over here.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and this still doesn't have a bronze plaque on it, so we're kind of thinking maybe we'll donate one for
We're working on it.
250th. Kevin's the plaque man. Anyway. This is really interesting, the four-sided clock, okay, let's go back to the four-sided clock, and what happened over the course of time. One of them was restored, saved, restored, and was on display at 50 West Street, so there's a nice little connection to the old town hall. If you look at this picture, this is the Mansfield News, this is them holding a face before, one of the faces before they're going to refinish it. This is Jimmy Musto, if you know him, Jerry Abbott, Barbara Hinchy, and Tony Caponegro was a selectman at the time. So they, Jimmy was an artist, so I imagine he probably led the restoration effort. And I think it was actually it's a functioning clock. And then, interestingly enough, when it was must have been put in storage briefly. I don't think it ever got over to Park Row. Now it's on top of the people don't even know it's there, but there is a plaque on the an oddly worded plaque, but a plaque nonetheless on the train station. That train station opened in 2004, and they put it on top of the train station. So if you want to see a little piece of history, and it still says Mansfield 1883 on it, still to this day. So, although I don't think the original clock did, I think the refurbished one did. Second one was auctioned off, and the proceeds were used to restore that first clock face. They still have it. They made a coffee table out of it, and it's quite nice. So hopefully that'll be saved forever. A third one was donated to us at the Historical Society by Dottie and Earl Beaton. Not if you know Dottie and Earl, but anyway, the story went. She knew someone by the name of Horton, was one of their neighbors, and she opened up the garage door, and she said, "Oh, that's from the town hall. That's beautiful." She goes, "You want it? I don't know what to do with it." I said, "Yeah, I'll take it." So it ended up with Dottie, and luckily they ended up with us. So this is actually our headquarters, the History Center, over on Copeland House on Rumford Avenue. This is hanging in our basement now, and it's pretty heavy. Some people have said to us, "You should." That's actually hanging on. That's the picture of it on the wall. Some have said to us, "Oh, you should restore it," but we kind of like it the way it is. That's how it crashed down, and they'll pull the Titanic back up and restore it. Well, some people probably would, but I wouldn't. Anyway. Yeah, really. So I think the damage is. I mean, it's great they've refinished this one. Don't get me wrong, but this this one I think we should keep as it is. And the fourth face was destroyed by all accounts, it was just in smithereens, and they discarded that one. Interestingly enough, remember this picture, this bad picture? If you look closely, it's a couple of copper lanterns, right? Remember John Albertini this is another thing too, a lot of the wreckage was taken away by town workers, which you really wouldn't see today. And people were picking through it and doing all kinds of stuff. And he saw these copper lanterns, they were about to get thrown out. He's like, guys, I'll take them home, shouldn't throw these things out. They said, yeah, take them, you want them. So he converted them for use at his house, and donated them to the fire department when the new station was being built. And Neil Broldagini kept one for the fire department, and he gave us one because he thought that was important that we should have one. So it hangs, this is also the basement of the Copeland house. They hang right next to each other. So we're really fortunate to have that. If you ever have any time, you can stop in. We're there Saturday mornings and Monday nights. You can stop by and see us. 53 Rumpert Ave. But anyway, that's pretty neat. There's another, no movement on this one. This is Mark showing us again where the town hall sat. People like to play the historical what-if game. There's absolutely no right or wrong answer to this. This is just my best guess. What if it didn't burn? What if it was still standing there today? I don't really know what would have happened, but maybe the upstairs hall, I mean, at that point we have, I mean, there's two auditoriums at Walter's School and the high school. You don't really need the hall. There's gyms. There's all, you know, its purpose was probably gone. It might have been split up. This is my best guess, used as offices as the town continued to grow. Maybe the town would have bought 50 West Street eventually, as it did anyway. Maybe that might have been additional parking. And I would have to guess that at some point the police would have had to have moved out. There just probably wouldn't have been enough room. And it's certainly anything but modern, so maybe a little bit earlier a newer police station might have been built. Or maybe they would have built one at 50 West, I don't know.
They might have tore it down because of high cost of insurance.
Tore this building down?
Yeah.
It's possible, yeah.
Could probably cost an arm and a leg to insure it today.
Some of them still have, I know Middleborough still has a town hall from this era. It
Really?
supposedly is like extremely haunted. It's been on that, what's the ghost show, you know, whatever it is. You know, if you believe that stuff, but anyway. Parker Row School, what would it, if this was still a town hall, what would that be today? Don't know, maybe it would have had another use. Maybe they would have tore that down. Maybe they would have tore this down and moved over there anyway. We don't know. But if it was still standing, I like to believe the aluminum siding would have been removed and the exterior would have been restored to its original glory by now. The job they did recently on Memorial Hall, it really looks beautiful now. And, you know, the town hall could have looked beautiful too if it was still around. Anyway, that's basically it. We have any stories or any comments or any?
Yeah, there was something else from the fire, the podium that they used for meetings at the selectmen's meetings and so forth, and that was restored by a group of citizens, and that was given back to the town, and it's still used for town meetings.
Yeah, when I reread that just the other night, I forgot to put that in. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah.
And it was the one, I think it was the thing that, like, when you would go to a selectmen's meeting and stand up, right, that podium people used to stand in front
Right,
of.
it's the same one.
'Cause I don't think they-
use it there, and I think they move it to the high school for town meetings as well.
They might, but I think in the most recent renovation of the town hall, something says, anybody know? I feel like that's not, you see that old carved wooden podium that was from this original town hall. I think last time I watched one, I think they weren't using it, was it? Look if you know.
Really?
They are.
They do still use it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I hope they know what it is. We'll have to remind them, put a little plaque on it.
I don't know if you remember walking on the second floor. Okay, you walk across that second floor, it would bounce.
Oh, really?
Crazy.
So it must have been fun in a basketball game. Mansfield advantage.
I don't weigh that much either.
We did that tour of the Middleborough Town Hall a few years ago, but it reminded me of Mansfield because when you walk down the corridor there, there was like a sign that said like town collector or whatever, you know, and a frosted door. The door had the glass on it with the frost, you know. It was the hallway was just lined with all the offices. And Mansfield was like that too, if I remember, you know.
Yeah, in fact, there's one that I could have put in. It was from the 40s. The selectmen were kind of, they were horse or whatever they were doing. They were acting like they were having a fight. But there's these big, thick, you know, those thick window panes that are like this, well, not panes, but they're like that block thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think it looks like it was the town hall, so I think your memory's correct.
Was the whole building in aluminum siding?
It sounded that way, not originally, obviously. I
No,
would say,
but at the end, they covered the whole building?
that's the impression I got from the newspaper, yeah. So, I know, a strange choice, I suppose. Anybody else?
I watched it burn. Did anybody else here watch it burn? Standing in South Holland?
Yeah.
All right, let's hear some memories. What do you remember?
The thing I remember the most is when they opened the front glass doors and all that water came out. It was like halfway up the door. That's what I seem to remember. But,
So just like that picture?
yeah, but before they opened it, it was like just full of water.
Right.
Did you live near downtown then?
I worked at Lena's sub shop and we were closing up when an alarm came in. So we closed up and went.
Open till midnight?
I just saw the time. I don't know why we must have been open late, and then we had to, clean. But I remember going when Tony, who owned it, I don't remember that part, but they had to have been because I was still there.
Right.
Why else would I have been there except if maybe somebody borrowed my car and then brought it back?
Which happened a lot.
It did. I was evidently jealous with my car when I was that age.
Who else remembered it, Ralph? Oh, yeah, Ralph, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we lived on Winter Court, which is just behind Cooperative Bank, and my dad woke us at midnight, and we walked down the street to watch the fire. And I remember turning around and seeing people go into the Congregational Church, to get warm and so forth. And next day I walked down that direction and picked papers up on the side of the street for souvenirs and so forth. So a couple of there, as a matter of fact, yeah.
Yeah, so Ralph brought these to show us. I'll put them on the side table.
Inside one of them is insulation that blew off the side.
Probably asbestos.
I don't see that one.
No, it's the silver paper stuff, yeah.
This one says Mansfield Municipal Light Department, 1 Union Street. So apparently that was the address of the town hall. And this also says Union Street, because these are both singed, as you can see.
Oh, yeah.
And some kind of a note card that you picked up, Ralph, that says Azalea Road Acceptance Plan 1956, file number T14. So Azalea Road, I guess, is that old. And then they sold, probably for restoration purposes, I would guess, little hunks of the town hall. So this is ours from the wood. This is a piece of wood from the town hall, right here. Inside this plastic bag, which says, well, it's basically everything I just told you, when it was built, when it opened. But anyway, so yeah, I'll put that over there. And then someone mounted the card. You can read it more easily. Someone mounted the card to this and mounted the piece of wood. It says piece of the old town hall. It says, I'll put those over there if you take a look at them. Anybody else remember? You didn't remember like sleeping through it or something.
I remember, I was going to the 4th grade at Park Road, and I remember waking up in the morning and smelling, the leftover smoke and fire. And I don't even know that they canceled school the next day. It may have been the day after, but I remember my mom being all nervous about walking by, because I was living on Eddy Street at the time, where we would walk up East Street. And my dad was like, no, just stick to the sidewalk, cross, be smart, use your head. And just walking by myself, it was, something that burned down. But I remember feeling, even at that age, sad, because even at 9 years old, that was a special building in town.
That was double session back then, too.
Yeah, it was.
That was a Park Road, too.
Anybody else? All right, well, we got some cookies and soda and water and stuff back there, so. Say no for it. Kept it right to an hour. Not bad.
Very good presentation, and you didn't lose your voice.
I know. I feel good, actually. Time for a piece of gum.
There you go.